Hello, Zed. It's great to be here. I hope you're enjoying the virtual conference. Today, Chris and I want to share our thoughts on a topic we feel everyone is aware of, maybe even thinking about, but perhaps not talking about. And that topic is the impact that COVID 19, or the new norm as it is being called, is having on us and, more importantly, on our emotional well being. So today, Chris and I would like to start the debate by sharing with you some of our thoughts, backed up by our own and published research. We want to discuss this new way of living and working and our concern with society being starved of social engagement. We want to share with you some thoughts about opportunities for innovation and how we hope and believe technology must save society during this pandemic and maybe beyond. And above all, we want to mobilize you all to take responsibility to drive change, grab hold of the opportunities, and make a difference to those people around you.
So, where should we start? In March of 2020, the virus COVID-19 swept across the world, becoming a global pandemic. Towns and cities closed, travel stopped, and the world was heading into very uncertain times. After a few days, it seemed that the world was back up and running. We were working at home, video meetings becoming the norm, homeschooling providing us with a renewed respect for the teaching professionals. We were coping, or were we? At first, it was fun. It was different. For me, being at home more time than ever before was amazing. Although my family may have a different opinion, I think my dog was happy, if no one else. We very quickly became used to seeing our work colleagues through the screen, perhaps catching up with family through Skype or Zoom calls. 8 p.m. drinks with friends providing great amusement as the vagaries of camera angles, different lighting became better understood, or not, and we became more used to communicating with the outside world through our screens. Everything was fine, wasn't it? Slowly, the meetups with friends drifted away. After all, we had nothing to say. We weren't doing anything new. We were locked down. We had been starved of normal social engagement. We were unable to read our friends' moods. We couldn't sense how they were feeling. We were interacting, but functionally, without emotion. We had lost our EQ. The boundaries between work and home blurred. Days start earlier and finish later. Back to back work meetings are the norm. Everyone accepting of someone apologising for being late due to your last meeting finishing at the same time as your next meeting, the same as the next, and the next. The mistimed joke, the uncomfortable moment, as our colleagues attempt to inject some humour and personality into the daily grind. On the surface we were fine, but on reflection there was something missing. So when we think about COVID-19 and conclude it hasn't been that bad, we need to think again. In reality, the COVID-19 pandemic robbed us of that which literally defines us as a society, namely the ability to socialise with the ones we love. And although we are functioning and continue on with our day-to-day lives, you might say business as usual, we cannot deny that we are emotionally starved. It's a strange paradox. We are better connected than ever before. Gone are the days of dial-up modems. We now complain that our broadband is too slow, but this is only because we are expecting more through our digital channels. We demand immediacy. On demand is no longer enough. Relevance is critical. But this is compounded by the challenges of lockdown and our craving for a better connection a real connection with the outside world. But we are more connected with our friends and family, work colleagues than ever before, aren't we? It's true. In our on-demand society, where we are always connected, why do we feel so alone, so isolated?
So, we have painted a picture I'm sure many of you feel is familiar, but here's some science to support our thinking. Experts in neuroscience warn that the lack of social interactions, real social interactions, will result in us suffering an emotional neuroresponse akin to starvation. The question is, what can we do to prevent it? Let's explore the issue and the evidence in more detail. Kay Tai, an American neuroscientist, said in a recent Technology Review article, the recognition of the impact of social isolation on the rest of mental health is going to hit everyone really soon. I think the impact on mental health will be pretty intense and pretty immediate. Kay suggests with colleagues and MIT postdoc Livia Tomova in an upcoming paper that this impact, a neural craving response, is not dissimilar to our basic craving for food. A vital question for future research is how much and what kinds of positive social interaction are sufficient to fulfill this basic need and thus eliminate the neural craving response. As the lines begin to blur between work and life, so do the boundaries between work environment and personal privacy. The freedom to work from home comes with the cost of the expectation that we are always on, ready for the next call, and camera ready. Given these new expectations of our employees, we need to consider the impact this environment is having on our employees' mental health. We must begin to consider the long-term effects and develop measures to help our teams deal with new potential stresses that they may not be fully prepared for or even aware of how to combat. So, what is at stake as we continue to remain isolated from one another? To answer that question, we should familiarize ourselves with the real-life story of Phineas Gage, an American railroad construction foreman in the early mid-1800s, who rose to unfortunate fame because of his freak accident. One day, on the construction site, Phineas was tamping down an explosive powder with a tamping iron rod. Momentarily distracted, Phineas was caught unaware as the powder ignited the rod, which shot like a rocket through his brain. Friends who knew him claimed that, due to the accident, he was no longer Gage. That catastrophic damage to his brain had the impact of drastically altering the man's identity. Most remarkably, however, in the remaining years of his life, Phineas gradually recovered some of his identity through social engagement in his later occupation as a coach driver. It is essential that we give these hidden emotional challenges as much consideration and support as the traditional productivity measures. So in conclusion, improving social interaction is critical for us personally, but it is also good business, especially for businesses that have relied on physical social interactions, brick-and-mortar engagement, and community. Let's take a closer look at how technology companies like EPAM can satisfy our craving for social experiences in domain-specific services, in addition to what the future of social experiences could look like for various industries. The key will be to include meaningful social experiences that intentionally connect us during this critical period of social isolation. Remember that investment in social experiences may be a tough sell for some businesses because revenue models may not be as direct as other, more transactional service features. Remember the stories of those stranded at sea on cruise ships during the early days of the current pandemic? The Los Angeles Times reports the cruise industry has been in freefall since the COVID-19 pandemic struck in March. Not only are vessels unable to sail, but the swirl of bad publicity has also left the public believing that cruise ships are deadly incubators of disease. While tourist escapes that act as petri dishes for COVID-19 and other infectious diseases may suffer, the World Travel and Tourism Council released a report that states that tourist preferences for near-term travel have shifted toward domestic travel and the familiar, predictable, and trusted. Additionally, 92% of consumers trust word-of-mouth recommendations from family members and friends. With the recent announcement and rave TechCrunch review of the lightweight all-in-one VR headset Oculus Quest 2, VR is getting less bulky, less expensive, and more appealing to consumers. Tech industry giants like Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg are betting that consumers will use VR devices to plan their future post-pandemic travel. As people tend to plan travel socially with friends and family, it's really a no-brainer for Facebook platform experiences to include avatar-driven social engagement in VR and combine it with virtual tours for travel destinations, hotels, and other hospitality services. Travel brands should start preparing their virtual and social VR tours now to help people who can't wait to plan their first real post-COVID vacations with friends and family. The last 20 years have not been kind to musical artists who have struggled due to obsolete formats, records and CDs, and illegal downloads. To make matters worse for them, and for us, the fans, the pandemic has now widely canceled live performances, which was the stricken music industry's biggest source of revenue. The Wrap reports that the industry stands to lose $26 billion in live performance revenues due to the pandemic. To make up for the loss of live performance revenue, enterprising artists are starting to act like small businesses and leverage live streaming and social media channels as their independent small business platforms. And while this may be easy for artists who have established fan bases, generating more awareness for new music, like Sheryl Crow performing on Instagram Live, through live streaming performances on social media like the aforementioned Instagram Live or YouTube Live, it would be difficult for newer artists who may not have as much of a fan base built up on social media to get their music heard in an ecosystem where social influence determines an artist's reach. Without a doubt, the future of live virtual entertainment has been created by Travis Scott and his partnership with Epic Games, who together have fully embodied the artist in a live 3D show in the game Fortnite. With 3D content, the future is limitless, paving the way for more embodied live social experiences that will trick us into feeling like we are attending events in the real world with friends. If we weren't binge watching our favorite Netflix shows before the pandemic, we surely are now. Streaming services such as Netflix, Disney+, Hulu, Amazon Prime Video, HBO Max, and YouTube TV bring us some comfort as we remain on our living room couches. However, these services haven't been able to replicate that theater-going experience. And while drive-in movies have been making a comeback in small communities, there's certainly an opportunity for digital streaming giants to make their content more social. Groundbreaking social VR experiences like Big Screen are emerging that allow people to watch TV and movies with friends in a true theater-going experience. Users can invite friends to join them in private or public theaters, complete with popcorn, snacks, and fun avatar-driven socialization.
Living for the weekend has long been the mantra of the won't miss a game sports fan. The build-up, the newspapers, the analysts, the forums, the banter, all contributing to the buzz around the game. And of course, meeting up with your mates to go to the match together. It's this anticipation, interaction, the atmosphere, the gathering of fans home and away, which forms the very fabric of a live sporting event. But with so many sports fans starved at their sporting fix, will the modern day coliseums roar again? Will live sport ever recover? The COVID-19 pandemic has rewritten the playbook. The sporting calendar torn up, games cancelled or postponed, the long-established revenue models failing, leading to review and reconsideration. The financial implications are difficult to stomach, with the major sports already buckling under the exorbitant wage bills compared with the revenue-earning potential of their individual clubs. The model in some sports doesn't work, but then it never has, so maybe this is the catalyst for change. So fans are no longer travelling to home or away fixtures. The chat, the day out, the social interaction, gone. Governing bodies, clubs and sponsors are desperately seeking new ways to engage with their fans. Thoughts have turned to social channels, how to really engage fans online, but somehow we find ourselves back where we started, starved of social interaction. Going to the GP has always been an interesting concept, certainly in the UK. That's if you manage to secure an appointment in the first place. When you arrive at the surgery, you are surrounded by other people who are also ill, perhaps with the same thing, maybe with something else. COVID-19 has changed how we interact with our GPs. We now phone them up for a teleconsultation. It's a complete reversal from the established pattern, with more than 70% of GP consultations being conducted remotely in the UK. It's hard to believe why this wasn't the norm before. Suddenly, patients no longer need to sit around in a waiting room. It's freed up GPs to spend more time doing what really matters. However, there is caution. There is a clear value in the correct use of technology, but it shouldn't replace the consultations, which require the value of the personal relationship with your GP. Face-to-face consultation can never be replaced. There's a trust and emotional connection needed. It's important to find the right balance between the routine consultation, easily conducted over the phone, and the need for the reassurance that a face-to-face consultation with your GP can most certainly bring.
Employees still need to collaborate and train with one another. And although the pandemic has us using 2D screen-based tools such as Miro, Zoom, and Teams-based collaboration software, the collaboration feels somewhat disembodied. Luckily, there are immersive multi-platform alternatives that will make us feel as if we are in the same space as our colleagues, such as Spatial.io. In Spatial, colleagues are visible as 3D avatars in private collaborative spaces, complete with whiteboards, post-it notes, and the ability to share desktop screens, presentations, and files.
We hope that everything discussed during our presentation sounds alarmingly familiar. After all, you are all attending this conference virtually, probably from your own homes, sat at the kitchen table, perhaps at your desks in your home offices. It doesn't really matter where you are sat. What really matters is it's likely that you are sat looking at your screen on your own. Under normal circumstances, we would be presenting from a stage, interacting with you all, able to read your reactions to the presentation we have just given. But today we can't. We don't have that luxury. For the time being, that social interaction with you all has been taken away from us.
Lockdown has impacted all of us, but have we really stopped to look around to understand the impact that our new ways of living and working is having on our emotional state and that of our colleagues and friends?
Jonathan and I have worked on this presentation together over the last few weeks. We have known each other for about 5 years, but haven't actually worked on a project together. This is our first collaboration, and it's been a great experience. We haven't managed to meet in person. It would be difficult. Jonathan lives in California, and I live in North Yorkshire, in England, which makes the collaboration even harder. Time zone differences, other work commitments has made it difficult, but a mix of snatched calls and a Miro board, somehow we have made it work. Unfortunately, about 3 weeks ago, I contracted COVID-19. I wasn't well. Jonathan recognised this and was incredibly supportive. I could say it was because we had a strong working relationship. I'm not sure this is true. We actually have a strong relationship. As I explained before, we haven't actually worked on a project together. Jonathan has driven the creation of our presentation and has been very patient while I created my own content. Would we have worked faster if we had been together? I'm not so sure. I do think the structure, ideas, and flow would have formed more quickly if we had been able to collaborate together in the same place. Sharpies, post-its. The Miro board just doesn't create that same environment. But we both needed our own time to work on our own sections, our own content, before bringing everything together.
So, in summary, what have we learned? It's possible to work with your colleagues even when they are in a different time zone, on a different continent. But you need to be more aware of their needs, how they're feeling. As when Chris was unwell, we need to be supportive and recognize that technology can't always replace what is important to us, to our society. And that is the craving for real social interaction. Hello, Zed. Chris and I decided that we would conclude our talk in virtual reality and kind of give you a taste of what the future might be for more embodied social engagement during times like this of social isolation during a pandemic. Hey, Chris, how are you doing? Hey, give me a high five. It's really good
Jonathan.
to see you.
Good to see you. Great to see you. Hey Zed, yeah, we're here. We're in a virtual room together. Really exciting. Hopefully, as you'll have remembered from our presentation, Jonathan's in San Francisco. I'm in North Yorkshire in England, so we're thousands of miles apart, but we're here. It's cool.
It is very cool. And what we'd like to do today is to kind of walk you through a summary of some of the key points from our talk. So Chris, why don't you kick us off?
Sure. So one of the key elements of the entire presentation was this feeling that we really need to make sure we're being empathetic towards our colleagues. It's very difficult in the 2D world. We're working through Skype and Teams and lots of the other software where headphones in, video on, but it's challenging, and we need to make sure that we're still reading what our colleagues are really saying and how they're really feeling, because it's not easy in this environment.
Absolutely, really challenging. Another thing that we'd like to mention is the fact that when you're proposing new social engagement features for client solutions, that they must be aligned with business drivers that can influence revenue or make a significant change in terms of their enterprise objectives. and realize that, these features sometimes are deprioritized in favor of more direct revenue driving, programs and features.
I mean, I think it's a really great point, and I think the key here is that we're in a consulting, we're consultants, but that's what we offer to our clients, and ultimately everything that we want to do, we want to improve their business, we want to drive value for their business, and how we do that is through our teams, because ultimately our consultants are what makes that happen, and so we just need to ensure that again we're not just being functional about our work, we're making sure that we are really engaging correctly with the teams, and from that, the happy team, the working properly together, the true collaboration will end up in us helping to drive real value for our clients and for our own business.
Yeah, for sure. And then finally, social engagement can be implemented in a number of different ways, first client solutions. And the real key during this period of social isolation is to make them meaningful social engagement, not shallow. It's not about just adding chat or commenting in client solutions, but making that engagement more embodied, more physical, as Chris and I are doing now in virtual reality. Make it a more meaningful engagement, especially now during the pandemic.
Yeah, and I've got not that much to add. I think you've covered it all, Jonathan. I think it's really, really critical that we do recognize, I think I may have even said in the presentation that, being typically English, people ask you how you are and you sort of say, yeah, no, I'm great, thanks. Well, actually, I think it's super important that we sort of look a bit deeper. I guess this idea of, focusing in intently and making sure that, we're not just taking the initial response, but also we're using technology for its true purpose and for it to enable interactions such as this, and to make sure that we're not just relying on it all the time. We're ensuring that we are spending enough time to make sure that we're getting the right response, the right reaction, and supporting our teams.
Definitely. So Zed, it's been a pleasure to provide you with some of these insights and some of our research. And Chris, I'll give you another virtual high five here, but I hope the next one is in person. Jonathan. And look forward to seeing you again, hopefully in 2021.
Absolutely, it's been great to work on this with you, Jonathan. Thanks for all your help, and thanks, Zed.